The following podcast contains opinions from paid professionals. The information provided in this podcast is general in nature and not advice. For free and confidential support, call 1-800-858-858 or visit gamblinghelponline.org.au.
Great to be back for another season of So We Think. Ben Way, great to have you in this snazzy new studio and to talk all things autumn racing.
Good to be here. It feels this is like the last time I got interrogated. Not guilty. It wasn't me.
After a little incident at the airport, hey?
Yeah, but I am guilty of waiting every single minute since our last episode to come back and launch into the autumn because from a New South Wales side of things, I mean, this is near on Christmas. Yeah. We have all the good horses here.
Let's talk about some of the big news items from the week that was, but also leading us into the autumn carnival with So We Heard. And the big story only a little while ago is that the jockeys have been confirmed for the two Coolmore superstar colts for the Golden Slipper. Ryan Moore to ride Storm Boy and James McDonald to ride Switzerland. So breaking news. Your thoughts?
My thoughts are we suspected Ryan Moore was the big dog.
Bark.
And we have just found out that he is the big dog. Yep. The big dog's barked and they've listened. So, you know what? It's probably refreshing for a few jockeys to see James kind of not be second fiddle, but be told which horse he's going to be on, because I'm sure for plenty of it he kind of has the choice. Ryan, I'm sure, wanted Storm Boy, and I'm sure James wanted Storm Boy. They're just the facts. It's the top seed. Ratings would suggest Storm Boy's the horse to beat. But in terms of a second option, let's face facts. We've got two big dogs, and they're going to be barking at each other down the straight, which will be brilliant, and Switzerland looks a live chance. I am interested, though, in James locking in Switzerland, given he has the ride on Gatsby's for Chris Waller, especially given how it played out last year with Shinzo coming through the back door into the slipper and James opting to go a different direction with Godolphin in cylinder. So imagine if he rides Switzerland and he runs straight past Storm Boy only to get bloused by Gatsby's.
Yeah, so the big watch on Saturday in the Pago will be Gatsby's, because that form from that Canterbury maiden has utterly stood up.
How about O'Shea's thing yesterday?
Unbelievable.
At the midweeks.
At the Kenzo.
So they ran second.
Yeah. So Gatsby's, the big boom on him will have to be proven on Saturday, but James is locked in to ride Switzerland, so there'll be no, quote, jockeying to get off Switzerland and onto Gatsby's if he were to blouse them on Saturday.
Which means there's a great ride.
There's a great ride for someone up for grabs.
Assuming Gatsby's wins.
Correct. It's a fascinating slipper, though. I think all the chatter this week has been about how excited we are because we've got two real, genuine superstar colt contenders. They're both undefeated. Storm Boy coming out of that Magic Millions and that great win in the Skyline. And then Switzerland. He impressed me last Saturday in the Todman. I think I was fence-sitting a little bit on him, but after seeing what he did and how he's continued to improve and how he can settle in a different position if required has convinced me that he is a genuine contender.
You were undecided and sitting on the fence. I watched your post-race interview.
Yeah.
James, the omen bet for him is Switzerland because he sat on the fence. He was as neutral as they come post-race, and I think he fell a little bit in love too on Saturday.
I found it interesting that post-race he said, no, this is the horse to beat, and he was pretty adamant about it. I found that quite shocking, but considering, we'd all been we'd fallen in love with Storm Boy, but...
If you could be on any horse, who would it be?
Oh, now that the big dog's barked, you do think maybe it's Storm Boy. I mean, I've been so impressed with what he did, particularly in the Magic Millions when he sat 3 wide the trip and just exploded and put a gap on the rest of the field. But then Switzerland, we know the way that Waller trains, and he has not peaked yet. They have not found the bottom of him. He hasn't reached his ceiling. So maybe he peaks in a Golden Slipper. The other thing we discussed on Saturday as well was the fact that Storm Boy's been up for a long time. Yes, he's had a little tip out here and there, but to win a Magic Millions and a Golden Slipper, God, you got to be good to do that.
You do. And you can't help but think that can't have been plan A. So maybe they had other horses in mind. And I still have Espionage just in the back of my mind.
Yep. And gets the services of Tommy Berry. Let's move on. Saturday sees the running of the All-Star Mile. And let's be frank, the field that is assembled is not all star. It's some star.
It has a star.
It has one star maybe in Mr. Brightside. Having said that, prior to Jenny, I thought she was so good through the Flemington Carnival. You know, she's a genuine Group 1 mare. What do? We can't keep going like this, back and forth, changing formats, changing the way you get in. Is it voted? Is it win and you're in? What do we have to do to fix this? Or is it unfixable?
Voting didn't work.
Nope.
So strike a line.
Nope, we can't do voting again. That's done. No.
This hasn't worked.
No.
So strike a line through that. Has Autumn worked?
Yeah.
Do you give up the Autumn? Because this was the big play to say, righto, you've kind of started to tread on our toes in the spring, so we're going to tread on your toes in the Autumn. But it hasn't worked. So now I think, rightly or wrongly, the public perception is this is a waste of money.
Totally.
For a organisation and a sport that doesn't have it to give away. So where could that be better spent? A lot of people are saying pump up your feature races and make sure you solidify your spot in the spring. I'm not a huge believer there. I do think there's room for a new concept. I just don't think they've quite got it right. And I did see a bit of chatter about a 1,400 metre affair, but you would have to change the name. Like the name,
it's not the All-Star Mile then.
Yeah. Well, for one, it's not at the trip, but also, I think there's a stigma now, and I think that's unfair. And maybe living in Sydney, we're not getting the full experience.
I've been to the last 3.
But everyone who's coming up saying the same things.
I think I've been to the last 3 or 4 and worked them, and it has progressively gotten softer as the years have gone by. I agree with you. There's a stench about it now, not only publicly, but in the racing community. When you get a win and you're in ticket and you're going, nah, straight off the bat, we're not going there, that reeks of a problem. And I don't think that problem can necessarily be solved. I appreciate that they tried something new this year. It hasn't worked. For me, you either really revamp it in the fact that we don't run it over a mile, we run it over the 7 furlongs, we cap the prize money a little bit more, we make it a feature event but not worth a big $4-5 million, and we keep it at one track. The rotating of the tracks doesn't work. It wasn't until probably 6 or 7 weeks ago, and I work in racing, that I was like, oh, is that Caulfield? Where's it at this year? Like, that's a disaster. Or we cancel it, we move on, we reappropriate the money into the big features. Do you know what, guys? You love the Melbourne Cup so much. How about we put that money into making that worth $15 million? Or why don't we create a specific sprint race for 3-year-olds in the autumn, maybe? You know, we don't necessarily have that. We've got the big Coolmore race, you know, at Flemington in the spring. Why don't we look at that?
Well, the only reason my mind goes to 1,400, and it's probably just timing, is you've got your think about it's in your I wish I wins that are running in 1,200 metre races because that's where the prize money is. But they're not. They're not that. They're milers. So can you get the sprinters that want to extend, and can you get the milers who would drop back, as opposed to at a mile, strong race, big prize money? You've got to be a hardcore miler. And maybe Mr. Brightside, in a weird way, hasn't helped them.
I agree, but I also think I've seen that excuse used this week a few times, and I'm not buying it. I'm really not buying it.
I feel like Winks, for all of her strengths, almost killed off a couple of races.
Yeah, but
because then we had 4 editions of them being non-competes.
Yeah. There might be a smidgy of that, but I don't think that can be the reason that we can peg this year's field being subpar. Hey, I'll still watch it. I'll still be invested. I'm still excited. Who's you playing it?
No, you're spot on, Mr. Brightside. but you're spot on in that 2 weeks before it, we were on air hearing every single race, winning your ins, and they were all going, no.
Not even thinking about it.
To the point where Chris Wallace
sent an email. Yeah, I saw that.
Anyway. Can you see the favourite getting beaten? I would love Jenny to win.
Yeah.
And I do think the additional speed in the race means they might completely run a few like Mr. Brightside off their feet.
Yeah, because Buffalo River will be up on speed as well. Yeah. For me, my play will be an exacta. Mr. Brightside to win, Cascadian to flash home late and just run second.
The big white blaze.
I love him.
He's got a big race in him.
He does. And you know what? He's been first up. He did have a big race in him and things didn't go to plan. Yeah. I thought he was brilliant last start as well. So third up, I reckon he peaks over the mile. He'll flash home late. So the exacta is my play in the All-Star Mile.
What's gambling really costing you? For free and confidential support, call the number on the screen or visit the website.